I've said this many times before and I'll say it many more times after this, but show business is a business first and foremost. Sure, they may go for the rare, unique idea or spark of creativity, but more often than not, producers will go for the ideas that are more market-focused, and that will get them all that sweet money. Sometimes it gets to the point where a movie studio will tailor-make a movie to be as big of a success as possible, and that's basically their main aim. This way, they don't have to take risks. They know that these tactics and gimmicks work, so why not give them a shot to make a quick buck? And hey, if they can trick the audience into thinking it's awesome, that's a bonus. It'll keep them coming back for the sequel. Little do they know, though, this is actually a huge gamble. If they get it wrong, they're gonna end up making giant fools of themselves and end up hurting their reputation with their target demographic. Case in point, the Max Payne movie. By many members of contemporary audiences, Max Payne is seen as that movie that tried a little harder than the rest, but still didn't end up good. But if you knew the history of this thing, and what made it the giant mess that it is, you might be singing a different tune. I know I most certainly did. By the way, this is a Patreon raffle review courtesy of Blackjack. Thanks for suggesting this, really, I mean it. I know I don't do video game content anymore, and I'm kinda cheating by doing this. It's a movie, it's a video game, doesn't count. But this introduced me to a really, really strange story. And if you'd like your idea for a Media Mementos video to come to life, consider donating to our Patreon, why don't you? And now, on to the video already in progress. It's time I tell you about Max Payne, Fox's Pander-iffic disaster. I'm not going to go into the history of the Max Payne games, there are a lot of other videos that do that for me, so I'll skip ahead to when the sequel came out. Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, was a giant success. It sold well, got good reviews, and helped catapult Max Payne into becoming a rising star in the video game scene. And just like every IP that gets popular, movie studios start circling around it like vultures, ready to sink their claws into it so that they too can get a share of that profit. The movie rights for Max Payne were getting shopped around since 2001. Dimension Films ended up getting the rights, and if they sound familiar to you, they made Spy Kids! And Scary Movie.
Oh, look at me, I'm all dead!
As it turns out though, Dimension Films wasn't ready to take on the project. They proved this by doing absolutely nothing with the Max Payne film rights. And I'm not exaggerating here, I mean they did absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Zilch. Nada.
They didn't have a script, they didn't have a crew, they didn't have any actors in mind. The Max Payne movie didn't even start production. Then in 2005, Fox swooped in and took the rights and decided that they were gonna make Max Payne their way. Why did they want to get a hold of Max Payne? Were they big fans of the video game franchise and were upset that Dimension Films wasn't doing anything with it? Did they perhaps have a better vision for what Max Payne could be on the big screen? Nope! The reason that Fox ended up getting the rights to Max Payne was, well, they wanted to make a franchise. Multiple movies detailing the many adventures of Max Payne. This sounded like a good idea in theory. Like I said before, Max Payne was a popular series and its strength in branding was only growing more and more. I'm sure Fox saw this as them having a built-in audience. All the Max Payne fans out there would be so excited to see their hero on the big screen that they'd drop everything to go run to the theater, give them their hard-earned money, and then come back again and again. And it's likely because of this mindset that they didn't care about the source material whatsoever when they made the movie. Yeah, you know me, I'm kind of an adaptation cop. I've gotten after a lot of adaptations in the past for not doing justice to the source material, but also not doing enough of their own thing to justify it. Yeah, Max Payne's one of those. Rather than adapt the story that was presented in the game, the producers decided to take the series in a new direction, only following the basic outline of the story, and then essentially rewriting everything from scratch. As we all know, die-hard fan bases love it when you don't really follow the source material. That never blows up in a studio's face. Never! We'll come back to this a little bit more down the line, because trust me, it plays heavily into the story later, but all I'll say for now is that almost no dialogue was lifted from the game. Everything was rewritten to be bigger and louder and more dramatic. So the studio had the Max Payne fans covered, but how are they going to attract the action lovers and the general public? Well, firstly, for the general public, they wanted to make Max Payne be as visually appealing as possible. The game already has a unique style, so the producers decided that rather than adapt the main story of the game fully, they were going to adapt the game's style. They tried to use practical effects wherever possible, but for these demon creatures known as the Valkyries, they had to use CG, and when they did, they went all out. Sin City and The Departed were their main influences aside from the game itself. This is where most of the time, attention, effort, and budget went. Especially during the drug hallucination scenes, which took 15 weeks of post-production to complete. Max Payne couldn't just be a regular beat-em-up action film, it had to be surreal and visually compelling.
I thought it was pretty damn cool.
And as for the action lovers, well, obviously they're okay. The film can be as bang, pow, wham as it wants to be, within reason. The biggest fear for the Max Payne producers was not upsetting the fans, not going over budget, not adding too many special effects in to the point where it gets distracting. They were only afraid of one thing, or rather, they were afraid of one letter. R. They wanted to avoid the R rating like the plague. If it's PG-13, then it's something for the whole family to enjoy.
I'm a Garrett!
Everyone can come in on a Friday night and watch Max Payne.
Rated PG-13.
But it failed because they actually did get an R rating from the MPAA. So rather than take the L, or in this case take the R, they decided to take the Mortal Kombat route and make their product less bloody. This worked and it got Max Payne down to their beloved PG-13 rating. Fans started to lose their minds.
Relax, motherfucker, NYPD. Yeah, good job. Everybody's gonna get a medal for this. Great.
Max Payne is an M-rated game. Rightly so.
Rated M for mature.
Can this movie really represent the series well if it's PG-13? Well, don't you worry. One of the film's co-stars, Mila Kunis, had this to say. It's incredibly dark. You still get the gist of it. The only difference between the R-rated and PG-13 is you might not see as much blood. Did it work? Did it appease the fans' worries?
Nope!
Critics hated it. Audiences hated it. The fans really hated it. Basically, everything was criticized. The writing, the acting, the disloyalty to the source material. The only thing that people really seemed to like were the visual effects. And yeah, they are really good, but they don't really feel like Max Payne, especially with these Valkyrie creatures they decided to add. On the critic side of things, responses were a lot like those of Tim Roby from the Daily Telegraph. I didn't hate Max Payne, but it's hard to summon up strong feelings of any kind about something so slick, remote, and vacuum-packed you barely feel you've seen it. And then, of course, some of them were less kind, like, "In the rain and pain falls on dialogue inane," courtesy of Simon Miriato from QuickFlix. One of the main things that was pointed out that was wrong with Max Payne was that they decided to hit all the tropes that they possibly could. Now, I'll admit, the original series, especially the first game, has a fair bit of cliches, but it manages to use them well. They sort of do the same things here while adding new ones, but they all feel so hokey, overdramatic, and overblown. This didn't sit well with the critics or general audience, but the fans? They were appalled with not just the PG-13 rating, that was the least of their concerns, but how this adaptation of one of their favorite video games made a ton of changes for change's sake. Sometimes they felt random and weird, other times it made it seem like the movie was trying too hard to be dark and edgy. But then there are those changes that really hurt the film. As many people have pointed out before me, if you have no idea about Max Payne going in, you're going to have zero clue what's going on. In the beginning of the first game, it makes it clear that Max is hunting down this drug cartel because they killed his family.
No, please God, no.
But we don't find this out until the middle of the movie. They did it so that they could hit this cliched trope of the dark, edgy guy is actually really sympathetic and here's his backstory in the middle of the film. See? Pandering at its finest. The film was a moderate financial success, but it was nowhere near what Fox wanted. That, combined with the lackluster critical and audience reception, all plans for future films were dropped. Yeah, this big Max Payne franchise, the one that was gonna be the next big thing, only lasted one movie before it faded away forever. Great job, guys.
Everybody's gonna get a medal for this. Great.
And the reason is because it tried too hard to cater to everybody that it ended up appealing to no one. It tried to be a big action thriller, but it compromised its vision so that it could get the PG-13 rating. I'm not even talking about removing the blood. I'm talking about the fact that they always envisioned this to be a PG-13 film and made their decisions with this in mind. It tried to appeal to the general public by being visually distinct and interesting, all while looking past the bright, shiny stuff on screen to realize that what they're watching is mediocre at best. And it tried to cater to the Max Payne fans by having all their favorite characters, more or less, on the big screen for the first time. But it didn't make any efforts to properly represent them, taking the fans' loyalty for granted. If you try to make something too perfect, it's usually gonna come out as a giant mess. I hope the new Max Payne reboot movie is gonna be a lot better than this was. The Max Payne movie serves as a cautionary tale. You can't make a film franchise perfectly tailored to pander to everybody and expect it to work, especially when it's based on a beloved IP. And it's not just Max Payne that tried this, lest we forget the horrors of Percy Jackson, Aragon, Inkheart, and the Star Wars remakes. Ugh. Time to learn your lesson, Hollywood. Graphics don't make the game. Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? Have you seen the Max Payne film? What were your thoughts on it, and were you like me and saw the film and thought it was at best, but then hearing the story made you look at it in a whole new and much, much worse way? Comment below and let me know, because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. And on the screen, you can see the names of our Patreon executive producers. If you want to be just like them and have your name at the end of every Media Mementos video, then, well, donate to the Patreon. I think it's kind of obvious what to do there. It's a lot cheaper to enter the monthly raffle, but for that little bit extra, you get to be like these beautiful people. Why not give it a shot? Thanks for watching, friends. See you guys next time.
Everybody's a medal.
Take back, rewind your back. Put a Christ in the front of me, you pretty go.